everyone, I'm LA Knight, and this is my very first video ever.
Yay!
Yeah, that's my best friend Lorien behind the camera, applauding me.
Hi!
By the way, that's Lorien from LorienKittyBooks, who had the audacity to challenge me to the crying, books that made me cry thing. I actually just watched it this morning, and I was like, oh, this is so cool, until the end, and she's like, do it, LA Knight. I'm like, oh my god. So, I'm doing it. I had about, 4 hours to figure out books that made me cry, because I don't actually, cry that often during reading. I cry a lot more during movies. I don't normally cry during books. But, after some careful consideration, 4 hours of careful consideration, I finally came up with 10 books that made me cry/tear up, and we're going to start from book number 10, which is, a little bit of tearing up, kind of crying, sort of, maybe, to, oh my gosh, I sobbed for about 15 minutes. That's about the max that you get from me, from books. I don't usually cry, hysterically. Surprisingly, most of these have nothing to do with, can you guys see my hands? Yes, you can. Surprisingly, most of these have nothing to do with character death. Most of the ones that I have seen do, or horrible, depressing, terrible things. Most of these actually do not have anything to do with that. First one is Rosehaven. Isn't this pretty? Rosehaven by Catherine Coulter. I actually read this when I was 19. It's a historical romance set in the 13th century, I think, where this guy ends up in this arranged marriage with this heiress, and he's never seen her before, and he doesn't care anything about her, and he always maintains, almost the entire book, he's like, love is for children, love is for fools, I don't care about love, I'm never gonna fall in love with my wife, it's an arranged marriage, whoop-de-doo. Oh, so, spoiler, real fast spoiler, not that most of you are probably gonna read this book, but spoiler, so, this whole book, he's like, I don't believe in love. Then, he watches his worst enemy throw his pregnant wife off a cliff. He kind of freaks out at that point. He kills the guy, pretty sure. Yeah, he throws him off the cliff, actually. And he's he just drops to his knees and just stares out at, nothing, and is like, oh my god, Hastings is gone. Hastings, by the way, is his wife. I loved her. Why did I never tell her how much I loved her? The cliff? There was a ledge. She landed on the ledge. She's totally okay. So she's like, hi. But when he, freaked out and, started crying, I was like, oh my gosh. Because it's the one moment of weakness you see from him, really, in the entire book. He just, breaks. Boom, gone. Shields, armor, gone. He's just I was like, it's okay. It's a romance. It has to end happily. And then it did. So yay. But I did cry during that part. Next. This book. See, this is Cinder by Marissa Meyer. It's a sci-fi retelling of Cinderella. I could call pretty much every plot point in this book, except, spoiler, main character's sister dies. She's 12. I cried, because up until it's right in here, up until right here, you think that the sister is going to survive. Right until Cinder gets to the sister. You think she's going to survive this horrible plague that she has. No, she dies. It's the most horrible thing ever. It's you think, oh, because she has a cure for the plague that sister has. And she gets the cure, goes to her sister, and her sister dies. Literally, the thing is right here on her lips, and sister dies. And Lorien just made this face behind the camera. Yeah, I cried. Well, not really, I teared up. I don't cry a lot, but there was a tear, it came out, it did. Really? Marissa Meyer, really? Okay, yes, really. Number 8. This book. Now, probably, anyone who's read this book is probably why? Can't see the title. Oh, wow. I didn't know that was there. So, this book, Unhinged, it's the sequel to Splintered. It's amazing, amazing, amazing. This is one of the two love interests, totally in love with the main character. Spoiler, all these have spoilers. Just deal with it now, accept it, move on. He does all these things for her, but he also does things that, she doesn't like. And at one point, he really pisses her off. And so she's like, you're doing all these things, and you're doing all these plot manipulations and blah, 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 but you know what? It's not going to work. And he's like, what's not going to work? She's like, I will never love you. Ever. And he just, for 1 second, crushed. I just kind of stared at the page and then, like, cried for, like, 20 seconds. I was like, oh my god, how could you say that? Who says that? So, and I'm a big softie for this guy. Morpheus, I love him. Even though he's a giant moth guy. He's cute, except for the wings. So, number 7, Divergent. Haven't read Allegiant, so no, I haven't cried at Allegiant. But Divergent, me and my parents have, like, really crappy, or had really crappy relationships. When Beatrice's mom died, I was like, crap, my mom would totally do that. My mom, like, me and my mom fight like cats and dogs, but my mom would totally do that for me. And I cried. Get all dropped up now, actually. Not on camera. Okay. Number 6. Another adult novel. Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy, The Last Man in the World. Now this is a Pride and Prejudice variation. It asks a what if. What if, this is for anyone who's read Pride and Prejudice, Mr. Darcy proposes to Elizabeth, the main character, and he's really rude about it, and she's like, F you, dude, I would never marry you. You were the last man in the world that I would ever marry. She actually says that. In this book, she doesn't get a chance to refuse him before he kisses her and people see them, and back then, no. So she has to marry him. That's not the sad part. So over the course of about 3 to 5 months of being married, she starts to fall in love with him. He does things that she doesn't like, because he's arrogant still, and he didn't get the, like, you know, the smackdown that he gets in the original book that makes him not be such an arrogant douchebag. But he's working on it, and she starts to fall in love with him, and then he finds out that all the things that she would have told him originally, like how she's really friends with his arch enemy, and she actually used to think that he was kind of a dick, and blah, blah, blah. And so he is like, oh my gosh, and cuts ties with her, basically. They still live in the same house, but it's like one of those arranged marriages where they, like, eat breakfast and they sleep in separate bedrooms, and they, like, never talk to each other. And she, at this point, she's in love with him. She wants to kill herself. She actually is thinking about suicide at one point. The only reason she doesn't kill herself is because she's pregnant. I cried because I've been there. Not recently, but when I was a teenager, I've been so wrapped up in a guy that I thought I loved, or that I did love, that the thought of living with this thought that he hated me, which is what she thinks, was too much. And so that's yeah, I cried for that. Like I said, not a lot of character death in these. Number 5. Thank you, Lorien. Number 5 is a kid's book. Ramona and Her Father. Who read these when they were kids? Lorien is shaking her head behind the camera.
Not me!
When I first read this, I did not read this when I was a child, this particular one. I read this when I was in high school, and me and my dad fought all the time over everything. We get along great now, but we used to fight all the time. We went days without speaking to each other, and we lived in the same house. At one point in this book, Ramona and her dad have had a fight because her dad smokes, and her dad's like, GTF on my grill, and she's like, Daddy, I'm worried about you, and I love you, and you should stop smoking. She gets home from school, and nobody's home. And her mom works, but her dad's supposed to be there. And she starts crying. She sits on the porch, it starts to rain, and she starts crying because she thinks that her dad got so fed up with her fighting with him that he left. That he left them, her sister, and her mom. That he just abandoned them because he was fed up with her. I have felt that. My dad has never left us, but sometimes I wondered, have I pushed my dad too far? You know, is he gonna leave? And he never did. And I gave him a lot of crap. Of course, he gave me a lot of crap too. And when I read that, I was like, you know, what if one day my dad leaves? Because we fight all the time, and I just... Floods. So, darn you, Beverly Cleary, you're supposed to be writing for children. But I did. Number 3. Oh, right. Sorry. There's one book on here that's, like, super special, but it's not actually here because it hasn't been published yet. But I read an advance copy. So this is actually 4. Sorry. The Hunger Games. I did not cry reading this to myself, but I read to my roommate. And when I read her Rue's death, I cried. And I felt really stupid because I'd read this book like 4 times, and I'd seen the movie like 3 times, and I didn't cry any of those times. But I was reading about, what's her face? Katniss singing to Rue as she dies, and I couldn't get through the song because I cried. And my roommate was crying too, and I remember because I wasn't looking at her, I was like, don't you dare laugh at me. And she was like, oh no, I'm laughing. And I looked up and she was, and I was like, oh my god, this is your parents, it's only broken, oh my god. Yeah, that's what happened. And then we like sniffled and like, you know, dried our tears, and then we like kind of laughed at ourselves because we felt really stupid, but she was only 12, man. And then, when I watched the movie with my roommate, even though I'd seen the movie like 4 times and didn't cry, I cried when Rue died. Again, I don't know why. It's my roommate. She's cursed. Book number 3. You guys probably never heard of this. The Incredible Journey by Sheila Burnford. Some of you guys have probably seen Homeward Bound, The Incredible Journey. That's a remake of a Disney movie that is based on this book. But this book came out in like the 30s, and the Disney movie came out in the 60s, and then Homeward Bound came out in the 90s. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe you guys probably never heard of this. And the reason I cried and again, I didn't cry when I read this to myself. I cried when I read it to my roommate. There's 2 dogs and a cat journey across the wilderness to get back home, blah, blah, blah. Everybody knows the story. Basically, it's, you know, gotta get home because dogs are so loyal and yada, yada. This dog, the bull terrier, he is old. He's like 16 years old. That's really old for a dog. They aren't sure he's gonna make it. For any of you who've seen the movie, you know that the old dog falls into a ditch and, like, seriously hurts himself, and there's a question about whether or not he's gonna make it or not. The thing that made me cry was not that part. I cried during that part in the movie, but that's not what made me cry here, where he gets seriously injured. What made me cry is when he makes it, he gets back to his boy, and the cat that belongs to his sister got there first and went into the house and then walked out of the house. And the sister is like, wait, cat, where are you going? The cat went back for the dog. Oh my god, am I really getting teared up about this again on camera? I totally am. I don't know why that really hit me, but it really did. The cat went back for the dog. But yeah, the cat went back for the dog. It was like, I don't know why. And it wasn't like the dog needed him, but they were like, they've been best friends since the cat was a kitten and the dog was like a really young dog. And so it was like a big deal that the cat went back, and because the dog was kind of old, so he was like really struggling in the last like, you know, 20 yards. And so the cat like stayed with him the whole time. It was really, really emotional. I don't know why I'm freaking out. I'm good. I'm not wearing waterproof mascara. I cannot cry. I can't. I'm good. Okay. Yeah, okay. Sorry, my camera, I'm still a little emotional, but, my camera's battery, like, sucks the life out of batteries. It's a battery vampire. It likes taking pictures. It does not like doing video. So, it sucks. Blame my husband, it's his. The book that made me, like, burst out crying, I had to put the book down and cry for like 15 minutes, is Mildred D. Taylor's The Road to Memphis. Probably a lot of people have not heard of this book. It is a sequel. It's not the direct sequel, but it's a sequel to the book Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. In this book, now like I said, me and my dad used to fight all the time, and there's a scene in this book where the main character, Cassie, is talking to her dad, and she did some things that her dad didn't want her to do because they were dangerous. And, you know, this is back in, like, the 20s. She's African American in the South, not a safe area for a young lady. And she and her dad had a fight, and then she went and did it anyway. And when she got back, she was expecting to get in a lot of trouble, and she didn't. And her dad apologized for yelling at her, and said that the only reason he got mad was because he loves her so much. And that's what daddies do. That's what he's used that word, daddies, I think, or papas or something. And it was, you know, it wasn't just fathers. It was like an affectionate word. He said that's what we do. We worry about our little girls. I'm really sorry, you guys. And me and my dad fought, like, a lot. So, I mean, there were times when I thought he, like, didn't even like me. So I had to, when I got to that part, I had to stop and put the book down and cry for a long time for me. I mean, I don't cry. I mean, like, you probably couldn't tell from this video, but I don't cry. So the fact that I cried for that long just because of that one thing is, like, a really big deal, and so that's why it's number 2. Number 1! I don't have copy of this book because it got taken down off the internet. It was an advanced copy, so the book's done, it hasn't been published yet. There's this book. It's called Warrior. It's by this person. Not going to give out any names. She's my favorite author, and I will probably talk about her in many, many videos to come. And there's this character named Yvonne. He's hot. And then there's his dad. And his dad is pretty cool, and his dad's kind of hot too. Because he's immortal, so he doesn't look all old and wrinkly and icky. And Yvonne, the elder, because they're both Yvonne. There's Yvonne the younger and Yvonne the elder. And Yvonne the elder is married to this wonderful woman named Lila.
Lila.
I'm sorry. She was calling her Lila for, like, ever, and then, anyway. But apparently it's Lila. So when I was reading it, I was pronouncing it Lila. Excuse me. Anyway, I'm going to pronounce it Lila. Screw you pronunciation people. I'm the writer! This is not pronunciation Gestapo police station. So, anyway, Lila, whatever. She's, like, one of the nicest people ever. She's pretty, she's elegant, she's graceful, she's ladylike, she's compassionate, she's kind, she's epic, she has this, like, awesome husband. She's gonna die! And, you know, I was warned by the author that character died when I started the book. I forgot. 4 years ago. I forgot. It was 4 years ago! Shut up, Lorien. So, I was reading this scene where she collapses because she has this disease. She collapses from this illness that she has, and I was like, wait a second, I just got this horrible feeling. I was just like, wait. And so I start reading, I turn around, I'm like, wait a minute. Does she die? And Lorien was like, yeah, duh, she dies. I told you this. I was like, when did you tell me? And she was like, when we hashed all this out, like, 4 years ago. I'm like, 4 years ago? You can't let her die! No! And I cried. I didn't even read the death scene. We aren't there yet. But no, I cried. Because I was just like, no. And she did what she's doing right now, which is laughing her butt off. She's laughing at me. She thinks it's hilarious. She is a sadist. She thinks that it's funny that I was crying hysterically over this character that is only in this is why it's number 1. This character is only in this one scene. She's mentioned in a few other scenes, but she is only seen in this one scene at that point where I was. And then I was like, oh my gosh, she's gonna die. And I was so attached at that point to that character that the thought of her dying made me cry. I didn't cry for 15 minutes like I did with The Road to Memphis, but that's not even the point, because the thing that made me cry in The Road to Memphis, I was actually reading that thing. The thing that made me cry in Warrior wasn't even in Warrior. It was in a sequel, but I knew it was happening, and so I freaked out. I'm sorry. No. And she's still laughing at me. Yes, I am. No, you can't. I don't have words. I'm out of words. There are no words I cannot couch my protest in accurate English. There are just, the English dictionary, the English language does not compute properly to express my outrage and grief and panic and fear and, did I say grief? Yes, I did! So, yeah, that was number 1. It's Lila dying, not in Warrior, but whatever. haven't read yet, but just the thought of it. And I'm holding under control by tenter hooks. Like, seriously, I'm, like, digging my nails into my control. That's why I'm looking somewhere else, so that I don't cry. Because I like her a lot. So, are you guys happy now? You've, like, you know, stabbed me, cracked open my chest, ripped out my heart, dissected it into little pieces, and sprinkle it like candy on a cake. Everybody happy now? Because everyone knows the 10 books that made me cry like a baby. So, yeah. And Lorien, you totally suck for killing off Lila.